will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And welcome back to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Oh man, we have a lot of news today. The first thing I'm going to say, I'm not even really going to talk about it because I don't think it's a huge deal. But apparently, Mike Huckabee has just told all Americans to leave the Israeli embassy in Israel, and they are advising that all Westerners leave the Middle East. If you're in Iran, probably don't want to be in Iran. I'm not too worried about it because the last 10 times they told us there was going to be World War III in Iran, it never happened. So, we'll see. But I don't think that that's going to be a big deal. I think it's probably going to be another series of targeted strikes. President Trump is not indicating that we're taking part in anything. And I'm certainly not going to allow it to distract me from the things that I think are important. So, among those, definitely Bill Clinton's testimony that he is delivering right now in Pkwy, New York. And, of course, updates on Hillary Clinton's testimony. So if you haven't yet, do me a favor, hit that like button. Help us out by sharing the show. That would certainly be awesome. And then, of course, I'm going to want you to sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to get into it right about now. All right, my friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. Right now, President Trump is speaking in Corpus Christi, Texas. I went and checked it out, and it kind of just looks like your average Trump pep rally. So no breaking news or anything there. If there is, of course, any great clips that come from it, we'll probably go over them on Monday. And let me just see here. Hopefully my stream is not going to go wrong today, because yesterday we had a problem, and I didn't realize until far, far too late into the show. But we weren't live on Pilled basically the entire time, so that was pretty annoying. I also reached out to the boys at Pilled to see if they can offer any assistance on like what I might do, because normally what it does, if you're on Pilled and your stream stops, then it automatically sends everybody to go to another show. It begins like the process of automatically sending you to a new video. But it didn't do that. It just kept kind of spinning the entire time. And I refreshed it. I stopped the stream to Pilled. I went back to the stream at Pilled. And for whatever reason, it never worked. So I will do whatever I can, if that happens again, to try and make sure everybody can watch. I know that there are people who absolutely love Pilled. They will not go to any other platform. But if you are on any of these platforms that you're watching right now, you should know that we are live on Getter. We're live on X. We're live on Pilled. We're live on Rumble. We're even live on Kick. Even though basically nobody's on Kick, or certainly nobody's on my stream on Kick. I feel like in order to get a good audience on Kick, you've got to basically be, I don't know, a total degenerate. It seems like the people that have big audiences on Kick are either girls or they're people who are just doing crazy stuff. And that's, I guess, not my bag. So, pardon me. Obviously, we have a lot of news to talk about today, many different subjects. But before we do that, I wanted to make sure that I give a big shout out to the sponsors of today's program. And that's going to be my friends right here at Brightcore. Now, you guys know now that 1 in 2 people in your lifetime are going to be diagnosed with cancer. That is absolutely insane to me. When we were kids, when I was a kid, it wasn't like that. You didn't have half the population getting diagnosed with cancer. So the question we always have to ask is why. Because in today's world, every single one of us is constantly being exposed to a whole bunch of different types of poisons, polluted air, chemical-laced food, water, toxins. They're surrounding us all around us every single day. And this is where these abnormal cell changes occur that cause the problems we're seeing. And yet the solution, in my opinion, is not another synthetic drug. It's going to be coming from nature. Now, check out this study right here. A recent study examined that probiotic bacteria, the specific ones that are found in kimchi, highlighted their cancer-causing potential. Cancer preventative potential. Gosh, pardon me. And it shows that these strains may help support the body's natural defenses at the cellular level, because this is where cancer begins. Kimchi supports that process because 70 to 80% of your immune system resides in the gut microbiome. If your gut microbiome is not in a good way, then you're going to have a real hard time fighting off things that are going to be coming in from external sources like what I mentioned before. But kimchi's 900 and more probiotic strains help to reinforce that immune network against toxins that are beyond your control. And it goes beyond that even, because kimchi is also known for helping to reduce inflammation, support detoxification, strengthen digestion, and it has immune boosting potential. So this is why Brightcore created Kimchi 1. Kimchi 1 gives you the benefits of traditionally fermented kimchi. It makes it accessible, it's consistent, it's super easy to use as part of your everyday routine. And that is why I am proud to announce to you guys that you can get 25% off your order of Kimchi 1 at the website you see on screen, brightcore.com/redpill, or you can go to the link in the description below, and you can even call Brightcore directly at 888-383-5996. Once again, that number is 888-383-5996. You can detoxify your body, rebuild your gut, and take your health into your own hands starting today. Now, if you call them, you're going to get an even better deal, but when you use that coupon code REDPILL, you're going to get 25% off your order. Thank you so much to Brightcore and Kimchi 1 for sponsoring the program. And I don't remember, yes, sauerkraut definitely has probiotics in it, but there are just so many more probiotics in kimchi. I want to say it was like 26 to 28 different probiotics that are in sauerkraut, but over 900 that you're going to find in kimchi. We are live on YouTube as well. I, for some reason, forgot to say YouTube. All right. Now, let us jump into the news here. That's actually not the story we're going to begin with. We're going to begin with this one right here. And we actually do have somebody watching over there on Kick. Hello on Kick. Thank you for hanging out with us. All right. So I wanted to give you an announcement on the progress that Brandon Herrera is making in Texas 23. President Trump, although he did previously endorse Tony Gonzalez, he has declined to repost that endorsement. Earlier today, President Trump went and reposted all of his endorsements from Texas that are available to vote for in this primary election. And he reposted every single one of them for the entire state, except for Tony Gonzalez. So Tony Gonzalez, in my opinion, is not doing so well. Also, we now have another endorsement for Brandon Herrera, this time from Anna Paulina Luna, a.k.a. Una Panuna Banca. So we now have more people in the House of Representatives who have spoken out in their endorsement of Brandon Herrera than, I believe, have endorsed Tony Gonzalez. So Tony Gonzalez is still really low in the polls. My hope is that Brandon will be able to make it through this primary with more than 50% of the vote, so then he won't have to do a runoff election, and then he can just focus on the primary, which will be, of course, in November. So, good stuff. Congratulations to Brandon. Let's keep it going. Now, we're going to also check in with RFK Jr. on the Maha front, because recently Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had mentioned that he and Health and Human Services were going to be closing a loophole which was putting all of that toxic garbage into our food supply. It is a regulation that is called Generally Recognized as Safe. And because of the idea of generally recognized as safe, it allowed companies who produce food and ingredients to put these essentially chemicals that have not been tested into food products or things that we consume, things that we put on our bodies, if they say that it is generally recognized as safe. Now, the interesting thing about these additives is that if they were put forth to the FDA as a potential pharmaceutical, they would have to go through more rigorous inspection and testing. But because they're being added to food, they don't have to. But because they are simply a synthetic chemical substance that is being created by these food companies, they really are almost like pharmaceuticals. So anyways, RFK Jr. has closed the GRAS loophole, which means that very soon, either these companies are going to have to prove the safety and efficacy of these additives, or they're no longer going to be able to add them to the things that you and the rest of America consumes. Take a listen.
And the GRAS standards was the biggest lie of all, because it allowed all of these companies to self-affirm. That's what they call it. It means you can add any ingredient to American food, and you don't have to show any studies. You just have to tell FDA, we studied it.
Did I say primary again? I did mean to say the general again, yes.
It's safe. That's all you have to do. So that's why we have 10,000 ingredients in our food. Europe has 400. The rest of them are illegal. In our country, we have 10,000, and we have the sickest kids in the world.
Yeah, so is it any wonder Americans consume more chemicals, more synthetic additives than any population on the planet? And he's right. We have the sickest population. We have more junk that goes into our food. We spend more money on healthcare, and yet we have the worst outcomes of just about anybody that's out there. The food that they make and give to us here in the United States of America is quite literally illegal to sell and give to people in Europe. And they are on the way towards banning glyphosate, but they just have to phase in everything that's going to replace it, because right now the food industry is quite literally addicted to the use of glyphosate.
And we've closed the loophole so that any new ingredient has to go through an approval process and has to have proof of safety. We're also going back and making all of those companies show the data that they relied on. They're supposed to keep it in their headquarters.
Something tells me that this is going to be very similar to what we saw in Minnesota. All of those autism centers, given the opportunity to certify and prove that they were providing these services to children, over 300 of them. Instead, only 6 actually applied. Those 6 were the ones that were actually doing it. I am certain that these food companies do not have adequate data showing the safety and efficacy of these various ingredients. And I would also hazard a guess and suggest that they probably are aware of their harmful nature, and even in some instances, their addictive nature, which is why they add it in there. They want people to crave these things.
And we're going to ask Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks, show us the safety data that show that it's okay for a teenage girl to drink an iced coffee with 115 grams of sugar in it. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. And then we're fixing the baby formula.
This is another huge one as well. If, to each his own, all right, but like a little bit of advice, there's a reason that human women produce milk to nurture their young. So many different reasons. It is perfect in a metabolic sense, from a caloric sense, from a nutrient sense. There is no other reason for those breasts to be producing milk other than to be satisfying the needs of that child. So whatever you do, the worst thing you can probably do is feed your baby formula, because quite often it's full of all kinds of the same sorts of non-natural additives, lots of sugar, empty caloric intakes, antibodies, yes, all of the things that you could possibly have in breast milk. They're going to nurture that child, and they're going to make sure that child is going to be as healthy as possible. But that's not going to happen if you give your child formula.
The baby formula hasn't been tested. We're testing it for ingredients, but we're also testing it for the ingredients that are not listed, or PFASs, or pesticides, or heavy metals, because we know a lot of them have those in them. And those studies will be completed in April. So we will know in April what's in the baby formula. And we're also going back, it's been 30 years since the ingredients have been reviewed, the nutrient levels have been reviewed. And we're going to go back and do all that as well.
Be happy. Some breast milk is better than none. And yes, there may be instances where your body doesn't produce enough because you got 2 hungry babies or something like that. But there is also breast milk markets where pregnant women will essentially sell their preserved breast milk to other women who don't want to use formula. I understand that's not necessarily going to be possible for everyone. Maybe you don't feel comfortable doing that, but at the very least, it is not advisable to raise your baby exclusively on formula. And for those of you out there who have done it, obviously, you were told something completely different by your doctor. I think that there are, well, I can tell you from personal experience, certain doctors have made certain deals with pharmaceutical companies or infant care companies, and they get paid based upon recommendations that they make. So maybe you went to see a doctor and you had no idea, who told you that, oh yeah, you're going to want to give your baby this formula. You're probably not going to produce enough milk, et cetera, et cetera. But if you give your baby breast milk rather than simply giving them formula, the chances of them being healthier, being better developed, being on track to live a healthier, normal life, they will be leaps and bounds above a child which simply is given formula.
And make sure that baby formula is as close to mother's milk as it can possibly get. In the meantime, we've waived the import ban. That American mothers who are concerned about the quality of baby formula in this country can import it from Europe or Australia.
Oh, yeah.
And that was illegal before, and we've opened that up.
Now, here's the other thing. Perhaps it is possible to make breast milk, which is far safer, far healthier, far more nutrient dense, less full of all of the disgusting, unhealthy, and sickening additives that have traditionally been in American formula. And, if that's the case, if they can make it essentially bioidentical, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So anyways, great news here. They're going to be, again, they closed the grass loophole. No more chemicals, no more additives. If they put them in there, it has to be safety tested. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. Every single ingredient that is currently in these things, companies are going to have to prove that it's safe. Again, I don't believe they're going to be able to do that. And then baby formula, which will be as closely identical to mother's milk as it can possibly be. And that is all wonderful news. Slowly, we are making America healthy again. All right, now, you guys probably remember when the Trump administration 2.0 began. One of the things that we had learned is that the federal government of the United States was spending disgusting amounts of money paying for subscriptions to the Washington Post. That ended very quickly. Well, we've now learned that in 2025, the Washington Post lost over $100 million. Now, it was only a couple of weeks ago that I told you the Washington Post was laying off a significant portion of their staff. Undoubtedly, their lack of money had a major, major part to play in that. They also have posted record losses over the last several years, $100 million or more for 2025, over $100 million in 2024, $77 million in 2023, and it just keeps going. 30% of their staff is what they laid off earlier this month. And of course, we had a bunch of hilarious Twitter posts and videos of now no longer employed reporters from the Washington Post bemoaning the fact that democracy was now dying in the darkness. And as a result, they are going to have to be changing things in a very significant way. Another really interesting development is that A couple of weeks ago, I told you that Netflix had made a bid to purchase Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is the same company, the film studio. They own HBO. They own like Discovery and a whole bunch of TV stations. One of those TV stations they own is CNN. So if Netflix, which is already a radical left-wing company, and also, of course, they are exclusively an online streaming platform, if they would have been successfully able to purchase Warner Brothers, it probably would have completely destroyed the in-person film market. It's already bad enough because they've been producing garbage and schlock and, goyslop for the last several years. But Paramount, which is owned by the Ellison family, they stepped in and they offered much more for Warner Brothers than Netflix did. And there was a bit of a bidding war. And as of today, Paramount has successfully completed their bid, and Warner Brothers has agreed to be purchased by them. Now, this is hilarious because Warner Brothers owning CNN, very anti-Trump. The Ellison company, Skydance, and Paramount, the Ellisons are big supporters of President Trump, at least financially. So many people at CNN are completely freaking out because they know that if an ally of President Trump purchases them, their entire business model is going to go in the garbage bin. They've been losing viewership and money in the same way that Washington Post has and so many other places. I don't think anybody has suffered as badly as CNN. Their viewership has just dropped off precipitously. And I think that the only reason they're still even able to produce content is because they have contracts with airports all over the country. You go to an airport, you're going to see CNN on the screen. So there is a complete just a bloodbath waiting to happen at CNN, and I can't wait to see that happen. Probably going to see more firings at the Washington Post as well. Now we need to check in with our man, Peter Ticktin. And remember, I told you maybe a day or two ago, or maybe it was just yesterday, that there was a rumor that President Trump was considering a 17-page executive order, which would fundamentally change the landscape when it comes to election security here in the United States, based upon the evidence, which we have already presented here in numerous forms, showing that there was foreign interference in the 2020 election. Essentially, President Trump would declare a national security emergency, which would then go into effect when he signs the executive order. It would get rid of mail-in ballots. It would get rid of electronic voting machines. It would require everyone to prove their identity and show an ID when they vote. Those are some of the things that would be associated with it. But it turns out that that executive order looks to be coming from my friend Peter Ticktin. Not just Peter Ticktin, but a host of pro-Trump lawyers. Now, also remember that President Trump had not that long ago appointed a election integrity and security researcher to specifically take care of investigations of the intelligence community when it comes to our elections. What was it? Kurt Sutton? I think it's Kurt Sutton was his last name. I can't remember his. Let me see. Kurt, or is it Sutter? Somebody in the chat will tell me. Kurt Sutter. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But either way, so he's been working on that. He's a lawyer himself, also a former Navy SEAL. And so, according to the Daily Mail, these pro-election security attorneys that are close to President Trump are urging the president to declare this national security emergency, which would allow them and he to take sweeping powers over the election system prior to the midterms, which are coming up here very, very shortly. So Peter Ticktin, who, of course, as you know, if you've seen him here on my program in the past, he's known President Kurt Olson. Thank you, God. Appreciate it. Kurt Olson. Peter Tickton, who has known President Trump his entire life, they went to the military academy together. They've served not only there, but of course in government as well. Peter Tickton has been an attorney, President Trump's personal attorney, for a very long time. President Trump also tasked Peter Tickton with looking into election integrity issues as soon as he came back to the White House. And of course, he is an attorney for Tina Peters. So this 17-page draft for this executive order discusses the Chinese interference in the 2020 election, and it would say that there is now clear and compelling evidence from court cases and forensic analysis that these threats have not been mitigated, but instead have intensified. This is a direct quote from the executive order. This constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. So the Daily Mail is reporting that this order would then allow President Trump to implement the things that I mentioned previously: nationwide voter ID, banning voting by mail, requiring ballots to be counted by hand, which means no more electronic voting machines. ABC News is also reporting that Trump is reviewing this order, and the lawyers and he are planning to take action very soon. Now, of course, this is necessary because the Senate is still stalling the Save America Act, which is not a magic bullet, but it certainly would address the issue of requiring voter ID and people to prove their identity before they just go in and cast a ballot someplace. Mitch McConnell was seen back in the Senate in the last 24 hours. He was being pushed around in a wheelchair, and he looked almost catatonic. He didn't seem to be able to answer any questions, or at least he wasn't interested in answering questions about the stalling of the Save America Act. Now, what's even cooler about this is that a White House official has actually responded to these numerous reports about this supposed election executive order. And they said that a variety of outside advocates who want to share their policy ideas with the president may have done so. Any speculation about policies the president may or may not announce is just that, speculation. Now, White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson also issued a statement, but it was not a denial. She said President Trump is committed to ensuring that Americans have full confidence in the administration of elections, and that includes totally accurate and up-to-date voter rolls, free of errors, and unlawfully registered non-citizen voters. The president has urged Congress to pass the Save America Act and other legislative proposals that would establish a uniform standard of photo ID for voting, prohibit no-excuse mail-in voting, and end the practice of ballot harvesting. One question that still remains unanswered is how this executive order may survive the undoubted legal challenges that are going to be brought against it. Norm Eisen is probably waiting in the wings, rubbing his hands together. One exception to the rule that we, of course, have in this instance is the implementation of COVID, because during COVID, they brought all of these changes to the election system, and all of these states just ignored their own constitutions to just pass through this mass mail-in voting, and sometimes it was via executive action. I mean, they took unilateral action, and oftentimes they made changes to the election system that were against the law. Changes to voting laws have generally been implemented through that legislative process, but there is now a precedent for the chief executive to do something like what they did during the whole pandemic phase. Now, Peter Tickton has, I guess, spoken to the Washington Post as well. He said, we have a situation where the president is aware that there are foreign interests that are interfering in our election process that causes a national emergency where the president has to be able to deal with it. And I would certainly agree with him. This is a national emergency. And I think that this calls for President Trump to take emergency action. This would certainly be something that a lot of people have been waiting for President Trump to do. And as I said yesterday, President Trump knows how to tell a good story. He knows exactly what to do to heighten the tension and make sure that people are on the edge of their seats. And sure seems like a lot of people are on the edge of their seats right now. All right, very briefly, before we continue with the next section of this story today, parents and grandparents, I have a quick message for you. This is some real talk for just a second. America is about to hit a huge milestone. You guys know we're coming up on America's 250th birthday. That's 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever known. It's not perfect, but this is the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters. Not just the fireworks and the hot dogs, but the story behind everything. So this is where the free Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday comes in. It's honestly a great way to introduce your kids to just how America began, who the founding fathers were, what they risked, and why the ideas they fought for are still relevant today. This is a guide that sends kids back to the moment when those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. When they did it, they knew full well they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way that kids can actually understand, but more importantly, enjoy. It also doesn't water it down or turn it into boring schoolwork. So if you care about raising kids who know where this country came from and why, most importantly, it's worth preserving, this is something that you're going to want to grab. But the best part is it is completely free with this special offer. You only pay the $2 for shipping and handling. You can get it by heading to freeusabirthday.com. Once again, that's freeusabirthday.com, and the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday is yours today. America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows it. You can also use that QR code on screen or the link that you see in the chat over there on Rumble. All right. Thank you very much to them. And just to underscore the fact that, yes, we do have a problem with our election system here in the United States, we have a new report coming out of Monroe, Alabama. 3 women were just indicted for filling out multiple absentee ballot applications, and they were all false.
3 women accused of rigging a bunch of absentee ballots. Court documents filed today in Monroe County reveal a grand jury indicted 67-year-old Sharon Denson, 46-year-old Samantha Kiles, and 59-year-old Sarah Bennett for illegally filling out and submitting ballots during the Frisco City municipal election in August of 2025. Those same records show Denson changed 7 people's ballots, Kiles altered 4 people's ballots, and Bennett changed 9 people's ballots. The criminal charges follow a civil lawsuit that was filed last September by former Frisco City Mayor Alan Lang, who lost the August election. In it, Lang is challenging the vote count, saying 131 illegal absentee ballots were counted, which changed the results. According to the lawsuit, 85 people falsely claimed they would work a 10-hour shift on Election Day to justify voting absentee. 33 people claimed they were physically disabled,
and they weren't.
And at least 13 people who didn't live in the town
voted in the town. So obviously, the problem they love telling us is so minor and barely ever happens, once again, demonstrably had an effect on an election at the local level. Cheating is not simply a problem at the federal. It is also a major problem at the state and local level as well. No election is too small to be stolen. And this right here is proof positive of it. Now, I see somebody in the chat who says they live here. They never even heard about this. Well, you could be living in a very different town, very different county, if it hadn't been for the fact that these women helped to steal this election. You can see razor-thin margins. 130 of those ballots were totally fraudulent, and it was all because of these 3 women right here. So, yes, extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary actions, and this is where we're at. We are coming up quickly on the midterms. Primary is happening right now in a number of states. We must, as soon as possible, have our elections secured, and I believe President Trump will do that. All right. Now, great news in Minneapolis. Earlier today, the DOJ and the FBI announced that an additional 30 superseding indictments were handed down for 30 additional people who were arrested in connection with Don Lemon's storming of that Minnesota church. In this statement from Attorney General Pam Bondi, today, DOJ unsealed an indictment charging 30 more people who took part in the attack on City's Church in Minnesota. At my direction, federal agents have already arrested 25 of them, with more to come throughout the day. You cannot attack a house of worship. If you do so, you cannot hide from us. We will find you, arrest you, and prosecute you. This Department of Justice stands for Christians and Americans of all faith. So we already have also another superseding indictment that had been given against Don Lemon. Now we have a total of 39 individuals who have been charged in connection with this violation of the parishioners' civil rights. This superseding indictment that was handed down today for these 30 individuals may be multiple indictments per person. At least 30 individual new indictments. They are currently under seal, so we don't have them yet. By Monday, we should. Local media is reporting that at least 9 more people were taken into federal custody and charged. I'm not certain, based upon the way that they word it in this article, if that is an additional 9 on top of the 30, or if the 30 includes 9 additional people who have been arrested, because Pam Bondi says that they have arrested 25. So the numbers are a little bit skewed right now. I'm waiting to get some more information about it. But KARE 11, local news there, confirmed at least 9 more people were arrested. You know, if I had to imagine, this came out several hours before Pam Bondi made her announcement about the 25 people being arrested. So I would say that early this morning, those first 9 people were taken into custody. So then they would be charged and ready to face justice along with the original 9 people who had been indicted. So you have to imagine that they are at least being charged with one of these 2 acts, most likely both of them, but you have 18 U.S.C. 241, that's the conspiracy to deprive rights, and then also 18 U.S.C. 248, which is a violation of the FACE Act or the KKK Act. I love the irony. And so each and every one of these people are now going to be facing many decades in prison. And the parishioners, as I think I just read the other day, have also now sued Don Lemon and these people in a civil trial as well. As I told you, before they were even indicted, based upon the way the law is written, they would likely be facing many, many, many millions of dollars of liability, because each and every one of those parishioners inside the church is an individual civil rights violation. And with 39 people who have now been indicted, every one of those 39 people would be on the hook financially to reimburse all of those people. There was at least 100 people in that church. So these people are effed, absolutely effed. All right, now in a surprise announcement from President Trump, we may have the 51st state of the United States of America in a location of the world that people were not expecting. President Trump said that Marco Rubio, who he says is the greatest Secretary of State this country has ever known, is currently in the process of negotiations with Cuba, and he talks about a friendly takeover, whatever that means.
Well, Cuba's doing very badly. They're failing. Cuba right now is, to put it mildly, a failing nation. And I've been hearing about Cuba. I said before, since I'm a little boy, I've been hearing about Cuba, and everybody wanted to change. And I can see that happening. Marco Rubio is dealing on it, and at a very high level. And, you know, they have no money, they have no oil, they have no food. And it's really right now a nation in deep trouble, and they want our help.
So, Cuba's in a bad way. President Trump has effectively blocked them from getting oil brought to them, from having food brought to them. I don't know what the situation is with water, but things are kind of dire in Cuba now. This is an example of President Trump's art of the deal. He has pushed the Cuban nation into a position where they can't afford to not make a deal with the United States. Got a little bit more information about that boat that was registered in Florida with the 10 people that got into a firefight with the Cuban Coast Guard. It would appear, honey, don't forget to, oh, I will. Okay, thank you, honey. Yeah, let me finish this and then I'll tell everybody. It would appear that they were Cuban dissidents who maybe went to Cuba with the intention of getting into an armed fight with Cuban military. Maybe they were planning their own Bay of Pigs style thing. A video came out with a couple of the guys who were on the boat. They're in a gun store. They don't say, like, we're going to liberate Cuba or anything like that. They're just, like, standing there showing off guns and stuff. I saw people saying, like, they were planning an armed revolution, but there's nothing to indicate that other than the fact that, Cuban dissidents generally don't care for the Cuban government. There was also one of the people who the Cuban military identified as supposedly being on the boat, who actually wasn't on the boat. He was in the United States of America, and he was like, oh, yeah, that's definitely my name. The Cuban government knows me, but I wasn't there. I mean, I was here. I think he knows some of the people, but he's like, I had no idea they were going to do that. So there is obviously conversations going on right now between Marco Rubio and the Cuban government in regards to those people that they captured, the ones who were killed. But they're at the point now where they've got to make a deal. Otherwise, the people of Cuba are going to suffer and suffer pretty spectacularly. So here we go. We may be getting a new destination for vacations before too long, guys. Anybody else want to go to Cuba? I would love to go to Cuba. All right. I have to tell you what happened with Muffin. So last week, or maybe last weekend, Muffin started acting like something might have been wrong. She was moving slower. When she would go out the back into the backyard, there's like a sliding glass door. There's like a threshold she's got to step over. Normally, she would just run outside. She would hop right over it. But coming in and going out, she started taking her time, like going really slowly. And earlier this week, when I was walking her, I noticed that her back left leg seemed to be favoring it. Like if she squatted to pee, it looked like maybe it was shaking a little bit. But mostly it was just obvious she wasn't running around or moving around in the way that she normally was. She was no longer jumping up on the bed when we have stairs from the floor to the mattress. And when she would go up them, she was going very, very slow. Like something was wrong. Anyways, we took her to the vet today, or I took her to the vet today. Lisa stayed home with Cisco. And they checked her out, and it seems like she may have like done something to her spine, like twisted her back or like pinched a disc or something like that. And the vet was saying that like right there, it's possible for, nerve damage to be done. So maybe she couldn't feel her leg, but she's definitely feeling her leg. It's just that it's not as responsive as the other one. So they gave her an anti-inflammatory shot, which she really didn't like, and she was like bleeding. She was actually like dripping blood. It was horrible. And I started getting all anxious, and I'm starting to sweat in the vet's office, like watching her. She's screaming and crying. She's a beagle, so, she's very dramatic, kind of like a husky. Huskies are dramatic too. Anyways, they took some blood also because about 5 or 6 weeks ago, she got bit by a tick. And they said there is the possibility of illness from ticks that can affect joints. So they're going to do some blood work on her. And all in all, she did really well. And they gave us some pills to give her as well, anti-inflammatories. And so she's got to take those in the morning and at night. But if you guys would, I would just appreciate it if you just keep Muffin in your prayers, because she's 12 years old now, and, she's on the smaller side, so it's possible she might have a lifespan like her brother. Chi-Chi is like 20 years old, but she's 12, so she's definitely getting up there, and we want to keep her around as long as possible. So Cam Cooksey, thank you very much for rating the stream, brother. I appreciate that. Everybody make sure you're following Cam Cooksey over there on Rumble. He is a solid follow. All right. Now, next up, Harmeet Dillon did an interview with Benny Johnson yesterday where she called out Ilhan Omar's immigration status. She said that Harmeet Dillon said that Ilhan Omar has some problems with her paperwork surrounding her naturalization. Now, what have we been asking for when it comes to Ilhan Omar? For her to be denaturalized because she lied on her immigration paperwork. She also married her brother so that he could get naturalized. Ilhan Omar is likely using a fake name. She has also changed her age because at the time that her father received naturalization, she was too old to automatically receive it. So they basically dropped her down by a year. So I thought that this was great. We know that, of course, Tom Homan had been tasked with looking into Ilhan Omar's immigration and naturalization status, as well as investigating whether or not she married her brother to help him get status here in the United States. But let's just hear it from Harmeet Dillon. Let's take a listen.
To see her contempt and right next to her, Rashida Tlaib, another person with an immigrant background. Look, Ilhan Omar has some legal issues regarding her citizenship. I'll just leave it at that. I think that they've been well covered in the press, but it's shameful. And I am so happy to be an American, and people need to get out there and touch some grass in other countries and see what they go through to really appreciate how great we have it in this country. But freedom isn't free, and every generation needs to fight for it. And if we're complacent about it, we will lose it. And history has shown us that that civilizations that get fat and happy usually lose it. And we're so fat and happy that we're handing out billions of dollars to scamsters in these blue states and not caring about it at the same time that California has the lowest reading standards in the United States and has broken roads and has an open border and has, there's sewage issues and you name it. It's insane. And so we cannot take this beautiful country for granted. I will not, as long as I draw breath, always be very proud to be an American and fight for what America means and why my parents brought me here to this country.
Yeah, that was an interesting answer. Could you elucidate at all for us on these citizenship issues for Ilhan Omar? Will we ever see anything on that? I will tell you that I was very
of anything, but
sure.
I think it's been well covered, and I covered it certainly myself before I joined the DOJ. That certainly it's a truism of immigration law that if you commit fraud in the course of obtaining your citizenship, if you lie about being that you weren't a Nazi guard at a concentration camp, you can be denaturalized. If you lie about your marriage status on which your citizenship depends, or your familial status, or what have you, if you fake any of those documents or you lie, that's a grounds for denaturalization. And so I think it's been credibly alleged that there are serious questions about the circumstances of the paperwork around that naturalization. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not working on that issue. That's not part of what the Civil Rights Division does. But I think we need to police that seriously. It is a precious privilege to be granted citizenship as a naturalized citizen in this country. And I don't think it should be taken away lightly, but if it's just a basic concept of law that if you commit fraud in the course of obtaining a benefit, you're not entitled to it.
Yeah. So one of the problems surrounding the evidence for Ilhan Omar's lies is that several years ago, there was a man whose work I was following, and he was preparing to release this information. It was just the start of the Biden administration, and literally the day before he was going to drop the evidence, the Biden DOJ arrested him and charged him with sex trafficking. So it all went away. And of course, he was arrested, he was tried, and I think he's in prison for like 20 years, if I can be honest. I don't know ultimately the circumstances of that, exactly what he was charged with. So I can't comment on whether or not it was legitimate, but I can tell you that it was rather convenient that all of that went away. Now, that's not to say that the evidence may not exist somewhere within the federal bureaucracy, but as we're finding out with the DOJ and the FBI and the SDNY, it is possible to hide things. In fact, it's not all that difficult to hide things. All they have to do is classify something wrong, throw it in an incorrect box, or file it under a different letter. And then the only way that you're ever going to find it is if you go looking through everything. And I just want everybody to recognize that after 250 years of existing in this location as a country, there's a lot of paperwork out there, Let me say thank you to several people. Sea to Shining Sea says prayers for Muffin. Thank you so much. Get well soon. Have been watching on YouTube and get you more views over there. These people need you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Also, AOB22 says prayers for Muffin as well. I take my dogs to a chiropractor. Definitely helps. Hopefully she stays strong so she has many more years of beagle drama for you and Lisa. I actually thought about that when I was at the vet, and I have seen other videos of people taking their dogs to chiropractors. I am going to look for a dog chiropractor here because of her unusual body composition. I think she would probably really benefit from it. Diane says, hey, Zach, I graduated high school in 1978. So the year I was born, you were graduating. I was born in August, so you had probably just graduated a couple of months prior. All right, awesome. Thank you, all three of you. Really appreciate that. Sean Joe, thank you for the can as well. Hopefully we are still going strong on Pilled, and yes, we are. All right, so there's a lot of different angles that this could take, looking into the various problems with Ilhan Omar's naturalization. President Trump, of course, has already tasked Tom Homan with doing this. I haven't seen anybody ask him about it. This would be the first thing that I would ask Tom Homan if I had the opportunity to speak to him. But I don't, unfortunately, and I wish I could bring you guys more information on this. But if anybody is going to be bringing this forward, Tom Homan is still in Minnesota. So it's not like it's over. All right, now also in Minnesota, you remember those videos I was showing you of the lefties, the commies in Minneapolis that were protesting inside Target? I was saying at the time, what do they hope to achieve by doing this? Well, I don't know really what they hope to achieve, but I'll tell you what they have achieved. They have literally run Target out of Minneapolis. Target has just paid a $110 million termination fee to end their lease early and leave this location. That means that Minneapolis is no longer going to be able to shop at Target, and these dimwits are going to have to find someplace else to protest at. So Target was already pretty woke. We've covered a variety of their scandals over the last several years. I don't know why they would have chosen to target Target, but it says a lot that they are willing to pay $110 million just to walk away from this prime retail space in downtown Minneapolis. This is a final desperate retreat from the 51-story city center tower, where at one point in the past, the company occupied nearly 1 million square feet of that prime space. So rather than waiting for their lease to run out, they would have had to stuck around until 2031. Target said, you know what? I'm good, bro. We're going to go ahead and just walk away. So the owner of the 51-story tower at 33 South 6th Street, it's an entity that's actually owned by Samsung, the South Korean company. They're preparing to list the property for sale, and they just want to get the hell out of there as well. So I guess that Target they're based in Minneapolis. And although they were no longer occupying all of this space, they, of course, still had to pay rent on it. And they did try to sublet the space, but they haven't had any luck. There was a law firm, Fox Rothschild, that moved into about 40,000 square feet of this office space back in 2022. A spokesperson for Target was asked about this decision, and they've declined to comment on ending their lease, but they emphasized that their commitment to downtown Minneapolis is still there, even though they're not going to be there any longer. They've been the largest employer in this area for many, many years. Hennepin Healthcare actually overtook them in 2024, probably because of all the money they were stealing from the federal government. And last summer, Target called its largest corporate unit back to the office 3 days a week, and they consolidated employees into other downtown properties near their Nicollet Mall headquarters. Several other downtown office towers like this have sold in recent years. Many have basically been bought out at fire sale prices because they've got major vacancies. A lot of these loans are coming due. It's costing more and more money to borrow money, and a lot of banks are just not willing to support a venture like this because people are simply not shopping in person anymore, especially in a place like Minneapolis. Minneapolis, of course, is also the kind of epicenter nationally of the defund the police movement. After the 2020 riots, I don't know that Target ever really recovered from that. They have publicly touted their hybrid work models, and the truth of the matter is that they could never fill this building once they started emptying it out. It's basically just an empty monolith that shows off how the sorts of things Target was pushing simply don't work when the people that you are essentially railing against are supposed to be your prime customers. So this $110 million fee they're paying to get the hell out of Minneapolis is going to be one of the largest lease buyouts in the history of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And Target, again, is under fire from the right because they're so woke. They're under fire from the left because they're not woke enough. And it's going to be a massive financial hit. They've already seen their brand identity shattered. So many of their marketing campaigns have been focused on, like race and DEI and LGBT stuff. And they have a new CEO. His name is Michael Fidelke. He took the helm of this company, and it was right in the midst of all of this craziness. He said that a group of Minnesota CEOs begging for de-escalation after recent federal immigration enforcement actions began, but now, obviously, they just won't have to worry about it at all. There have been a number of instances of protesters coming in and demanding that Target leadership go on record and say ICE can't come into your stores, but they've been unwilling to do that thus far. There are still some locations that are going to remain open, but this landmark location in the middle of Minneapolis is just simply going to remain empty. Now, also in Minnesota, the Minnesota Freedom Caucus, Republicans are turning up the heat on the far-left executive leadership. They have now officially began impeachment efforts against both Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison. The administration of Tim Walz and Keith Ellison has continued to look the other way in the midst of all of this fraud that's being exposed across the entirety of the state. At least $9 billion, probably more if we go back even further. And there have been a number of reports that a lot of this money is just being stolen, funneled overseas, put into the bank accounts of terrorists. And of course, we also know it's supported the lavish lifestyles of some of these Somali pirates. So Governor Tim Walz is now facing an impeachment effort along with the Attorney General Keith Ellison, and the Minnesota Freedom Caucus announced it in a video on their official Twitter account. Let's take a look.
Hey folks, Representative Drew Roach here. Here with my other colleagues from the Minnesota Freedom Caucus, here to do the work for the people.
Representative Ben Davis, folks, and in my hands I have articles of impeachment against Attorney General Keith Ellison. As I'm sure you're aware, he had the Feeding Our Future fraudsters in his office doing an alleged quid pro quo. He's not fit for office.
Representative Mike Weiner, impeachment articles for the fraudster in chief, Tim Walz, holding politicians accountable, holding him accountable for the massive amount of fraud in the state of Minnesota, estimated $9 billion taxpayers' money that is being wasted. Ready to drop this.
All right. Well, let's see what happens. Sherry K47 over on Rumble says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I lost my sweet 18-month-old Standard on Mother's Day from a tick-borne illness called Ehrlichia. It caused autoimmune infections that kept attacking her, and then she got pneumonia from all the tubing. Most survived." I'm so sorry to hear that. Hopefully Muffin is going to be okay. Will to Push Forward says, "Zach, if possible, if Muffin is not too old, try to get her to go up steps to try and strengthen her hind legs, go up incline slopes at a park or somewhere, help my dog live up to nearly 18 years. So normally she does. And the problem with this leg is that the lack of strength has to do with a specific injury to one of her discs. So there's maybe a deficit in the nerves going there. We walk every day. She does, move around. She likes to lay on the couch in the living room, so she will go up those stairs on the couch. It's just that it's obvious that it's not as easy for her as it once was. So I also got something called Cosequin, which is glucosamine, MSM, and chondroitin, which is specifically for joints for dogs. And she's, they started taking that this week. So hopefully everything that we're doing is going to bring her back to tip-top shape. All right. Next, we also have this announcement from Anna Paulina Luna, especially relevant considering the national conversation about the sweetheart deal that Jeffrey Epstein got from the federal government back in 2008, 2009. She says that next week she's going to be introducing legislation which will ban prosecutors from being able to offer plea deals to defendants that are charged with the rape or sexual assault of a child and any similar charges, which means no deals for pedos. No deals for pedos. If you're a pedo and you hurt a child in this way, I think that this is something that we've always needed. People need to pay the maximum price because, unfortunately, the damage that's done to that child never ends. So that person might get out of jail. They might never even go to jail because they're dealing with a left-wing prosecutor. If it is on the books that for certain crimes you must do A, B, and C, go to prison for the maximum penalty, then absolutely that's what needs to be done. I think that that is a wonderful, wonderful idea. Now, let's get us into the Epstein files, Hillary Clinton's testimony, and Bill Clinton's upcoming testimony, which we are likely going to be hearing more about later today. And I'll have to cover it probably on Monday. One thing that we've just learned from these new Epstein files is that in 2023, now, I almost dropped my coffee this morning when I saw this. In 2023, in the midst of the Biden administration, in the midst of Christopher Wray's FBI, the FBI was hacked the night of the Super Bowl, and whoever hacked in deleted 500 terabytes of data related to the Epstein files and other things. So we can see here, 500 terabytes of data was gone as a result of the intrusion. I was able to recover about 400 terabytes of the data, however, so that means we lost about 100 terabytes. I was told to Google how to recover the data. No one else tried to help us. Around 3:30 p.m. is when we noticed strange IP activity. The activity included combing through certain files pertaining to the Epstein investigation. We were not able to identify the computer, but it had to have accessed our network either by being plugged into the network or possibly by telnetting in virtually. So that means that somebody at the FBI or a foreign entity or a hacking group with sophisticated abilities was able to remotely log into the FBI and delete that data. Now, somebody says, Q-List says the NSA can recover, nothing is ever lost. So that was the first thing I thought, too, is that nothing is ever truly lost. However, if somebody was savvy enough to be able to hack into the FBI remotely, we have no idea what tools they had at their disposal. Physical damage to a drive of certain types is going to make data unrecoverable. They were luckily able to get 400 terabytes of data, which is a tremendous amount of data. But they lost 100 terabytes. We have no idea what was on there. But yes, allegedly this is what happened. So we'll be looking for follow-ups on this, and I would think that this is the kind of thing that they would probably want to be asking the FBI about. Pretty important stuff there. No, I don't think that the NSA would have done it. Either way, we don't know. All right, now, we all know that, or maybe you don't, but Woody Allen was a big fan of the NBA, and he would frequently go to basketball games in New York City. Jeffrey Epstein was a good friend of Woody Allen, and it turns out that Jeffrey Epstein frequently came to NBA games with Woody Allen. Take a look at this. Here is Jeffrey Epstein in 2018 at a Knicks game.
We want to wish the best of luck to our neighbors, the Brooklyn.
Turn this down because I don't want to get a copyright infringement. I don't know what this song is. Oh, look right there. There's Jeffrey Epstein again, right there. He was sitting ringside.
The city edition. Well done.
Jeffrey, look at this. Here's an email to Ike Groff from somebody else. We can't, probably Leslie Groff. I can see that. There's an L, and that's another Groff. So Leslie writing to Ike, he has Woody's tickets. He just told me this is the game that they are referring to.
Well, look around Madison Square.
This is Woody Allen in 1994 at the Knicks-Bulls playoff. Woody Allen sitting here with his, at one time, nearly adoptive daughter, the adoptive daughter of his ex-wife, Mia Farrow, who he raised like a daughter, but never actually adopted her legally, so that when she turned 18, he could just take her away and wife her up.
This afternoon finds Woody Allen, regular here.
And of course, Woody Allen and Jeffrey Epstein were good friends.
Seasons in the early 70s.
Why are you so hostile? Because I want to watch the Knicks on television.
Knicks go with Hardaway, Porzingis, Cantor. City edition alternate jerseys making their debut. Wonderful gesture to honor.
There's Jeffrey again, right there. He was all over this game because he was ringside.
And the fans are hoping they're
Looks like he's with two women. Because their faces are blurred, we can assume that they're either co-conspirators or victims. There he is again. Just right there. There he goes. Apparently he left at halftime.
Is there a couple opportunities? Quincy Acey, and he's screaming and can't end their four-game home losing streak. Knicks now 23 and 28.
Sweep the Nets. For a young team like this, what does it mean to establish that kind of dominance?
Must be the jerseys. You know, we show grit. We show the New York grit, like the firefighters.
Oh, that's Ennis Freedom Cantor.
I just want to say I appreciate it, man. It's an honor to wear this jersey.
There he is again. Higher resolution picture. Anyways, we also have some footage from Hillary Clinton after the deposition she gave in Pkwy, New York. She was asked a couple of questions by some reporters. Now, largely, she wanted to use this as an opportunity to attack the Oversight Committee, to once again impugn the innocence of President Trump. She testified largely stating that she had no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein. She didn't remember meeting him. She also claimed that Ghislaine Maxwell was merely a +1 at Chelsea's wedding, which, you know, by her account means that she didn't personally invite Ghislaine Maxwell. We'll talk about that in a moment. But she was also asked about Bill Clinton being photographed with what appears to be both Ghislaine Maxwell and a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, because it's a woman and her face is obscured, which the DOJ has said numerous times that they were only obscuring the faces of women who were victims, the names of women who were victims. So you can see Clinton in the hot tub right there. He looks like he's been in there quite a long time. His face is rather red. Maybe he's just gotten a sunburn. But, you know, there are numerous pictures and videos out there of Bill Clinton hanging out with victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Here is Hillary Clinton being asked about her husband in these photographs.
Secretary, you spoke in your opening remarks about how heartbroken you have been for the Epstein survivors as these files have come out. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you have processed and
She's a sociopath. Look at her face.
Reacted to the fact that the former president, your husband, Bill Clinton, is referenced in the Epstein files numerous times, including in some photos featuring women. And how have you been personally preparing for the deposition that is coming tomorrow? Are you 100% confident that there isn't anything that the former president knows about Epstein's crimes?
I am, and I think the chronology of the connection that he had with Epstein ended several years before anything about Epstein's criminal activities came to light, and that he was charged and sadly given a sweetheart deal, which, as I said in my statement, had that not happened, perhaps his predatory behavior could have been stopped earlier. But I think it is fair to say that the vast majority of people who had contact with him before his criminal pleas in 2008 were like most people. They did not know what he was doing. And I think that that is exactly what my husband will testify to tomorrow.
That's definitely not fair to say, because plenty of people that were hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein before his plea were definitely engaging in the exact same type of behavior that he was charged with. And we can see that from many of the emails. I need to say thank you very much to Jim Kyle. Jim Kyle, thank you so much, sir, for the $100 Rumble rant. Really appreciate it. Also, My Undivided Life, thank you for the $20 rant, says, consider canine acupuncture also. It's wonderful, along with chiropractic for muscle, nerve, spine issues. Hugs for Muffin. Thank you. Now, Doodah Man, I replied to you on Pilled. If you can email me, if your wife has a recommendation for animal chiropractors in the area, I live in Flagler County, you can get a hold of me at redpill78@proton.me. That would be really awesome. I would appreciate it. If not, totally fine. I'll probably end up doing some research this weekend. Now, I want you to remember that Hillary Clinton testified under oath that she didn't have a relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell. It was really ancillary, sort of tangential. And she said that she never remembered meeting Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the phrasing of that is very curious because she didn't say, I never met Jeffrey Epstein. She says, I can't recall ever meeting Jeffrey Epstein. That is a very Clinton-esque type of answer, especially when you've just sworn under penalty of perjury that you're going to tell the truth. Well, I've shown you a number of emails prior to yesterday's testimony showing that Jeffrey Epstein and the people that he knew and communicated with seem to be well aware of the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein and not only Bill Clinton, but also Hillary Clinton. Here we can see in this email, which you can find in the files, that Hillary Clinton had scheduled to meet up with the president of the Ivory Coast on the same day that Jeffrey Epstein was going to be there. Now, the niece of the president of Ivory Coast, Nina Keita, seemingly thought that it was going to work out rather well because both Jeffrey Epstein and Hillary Clinton were going to be in the Ivory Coast to meet her uncle at the exact same time. Now, you can see here begins a email thread from Nina to Jeffrey. She says, sorry, Jeffrey, I didn't get the part where you say we could go back together. Also, are these people going to be in Paris around January 28th? I remember you said the head of the Nobel Prize would be in Paris on the 12th, but is he going to be there also around the 28th? I am asking these precisions because I'll show him the email and at least I would be able to give him more details when he asks. Jeffrey replies and said, yes, they will be there as well. I thought if you prefer Paris, I will bring you there on the 28th after you finish your New York job. She replies and says, hello, Jeffrey. I just left his place and he knew about the 17th date. He said the 17th is perfect. Apparently, Hillary Clinton would also be there the same day as you, and I guess you know her pretty well. Also concerning Paris, he'll be there the 25th, leaving the 28th for Addis Ababa. He is returning on the 1st to Nice for some vacation and said if you'd like to meet, he could also do it in Nice as well. The 16th, he'll be in Monrovia, and that's the reason why it wasn't available. Please let me know what your plans are because he told me to stay until the 18th, and depending on when you're coming, I could arrange for some meetings with a few people. He replies and says, let's do Paris on the 27th. I will take you with me from New York. Then if you want, we can stay and do Nice and meet him again there. The foreign minister of Kazakhstan will also be at the house on the 28th. I do not want to be there the same day as Hillary. This is confirmed now. Paris on the 27th or 28th. You can go to your New York, finish your job, and fly with me the night of the 25th or the 26th. She says, Jeffrey, this is going to be tough because I already told him you'll come and I really don't know what to say anymore. You won't meet her and he doesn't know that you know each other. I can't say again that you can't come. And he says, okay, I thought you were suggesting I not come with Hillary there. I can come on the 16th, leave the night of the 17th, and see him again in Paris on the 28th. So very clearly, Jeffrey Epstein knows Hillary Clinton. Other people know that Jeffrey Epstein knows Hillary Clinton. They arranged a meeting right here. And here is another one. And actually, I just had that one up here twice. Here is another one. In 2012, Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to land at an Air Force base in the Ivory Coast, once again, because of Hillary Clinton's envoy being present at the local airport. Right here, Hillary Clinton arrives Monday night in Abidjan, according to Mr. Tokoff, so security will be high. David Tokoff told me to park our aircraft at the Air Force base instead of the civilian side, and he'll go ahead and meet it. So Hillary Clinton, her staff is making sure that Jeffrey Epstein is able to park his airplane in the same place as her so that they can get together and hang out. We have another instance right here where Hillary Clinton told Congress that she had never met Jeffrey Epstein. However, in 2015, Epstein attended a Hillary Clinton fundraiser that was actually being put on by Howard Lutnick that was described as very intimate. This is an email from Leslie Groff, one of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators and his assistant to Jeffrey Epstein, discussing the fundraiser that was sent as an invitation from Howard Lutnick. November 11th, Hillary Clinton event at Cantor Fitzgerald for 1 hour from 5:30 to 6:30. I would like you to attend a very intimate fundraising event with Hillary Clinton at the Cantor Fitzgerald offices. November 11th, please RSVP. And then we have another one right here. Epstein arranging another discreet meeting with Hillary Clinton and the Rothschilds in 2013. Remember, Jeffrey Epstein was an employee of the Rothschilds. He was one of their money men. Somebody, Oliver Colum, his name is, emails Jeffrey Epstein and asks, could you organize a discreet meeting between Sarko and Hillary Clinton in New York? If not, who should we ask? And he replies and says, meetings with Hillary are not easily discreet. When? He's not saying it can't be done, only that it may be difficult, which means that in order to schedule a discreet meeting with Hillary Clinton, you would have to know Hillary Clinton. You would have to have the ability to communicate with her and to communicate with her staff. Now, on to the suggestion that Ghislaine Maxwell was merely a +1 at Chelsea's wedding and the Clintons would have had no knowledge or control over it. Paul Sperry is reporting a contradiction to her testimony. She claimed that she didn't know Ghislaine Maxwell or that she would be attending her daughter's wedding. However, a source from the Secret Service who was working on the Clintons at that time told Paul Sperry that the protective detail, of course, would have been needed to pre-screen the guest list for Chelsea's 2010 wedding. That includes everybody who the Clintons invited and, of course, every +1 that an invitee must be bringing. So Hillary is claiming Ghislaine was brought as a +1. However, the Secret Service would have done advanced security because Hillary Clinton, of course, was a VIP. They would have needed to look into Ghislaine Maxwell's background. That would have shown her association with Jeffrey Epstein, who at this time had just recently been convicted of being a child sex offender, and that undoubtedly would have come up. So the Clintons would have then been provided the names of every person who was going to be there, not only the people they invited, but the people who their invitees were bringing along with them. And they would have then been cleared for attendance. So the idea that Hillary Clinton had no idea Ghislaine Maxwell was going to be at her daughter's wedding is patently ridiculous. Just underscoring the idea that there was a distinct connection between Hillary Clinton, Ghislaine Maxwell, and, of course, the entire Epstein network. We have an email thread here between Cheryl Mills, who was Hillary Clinton's chief of staff, and who was also part of Bill Clinton's transition team, between Cheryl Mills and Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell wrote to Cheryl Mills in 2002 and said, hey, I'm currently in my bikini at Palm Beach. I'm not trying to make you jealous or anything. Carol is great. Actually, she may not be gone for too long as she came in to work with me as the deal goes through. I'm not dumb. It took me so long to make a girlfriend. I'm not prepared to lose her to Osama. Whilst you were out shopping for birthday gifts, I thought you would like to know that it is my birthday. And Cheryl Mills writes back and says, is today really your birthday? It's the birthday of one of my greatest friends, and it would not be at all surprising that you shared it. So happy birthday, darling. I'll have to do a bit of thinking. Hate for you being in Palm Beach. If it weren't for your birthday, I'll call you what you really are for. I'll call you what you really are for being there. Don't know what that means. And Ghislaine Maxwell replies, you did not read down to the bottom of the page. At the bottom, it says December 25th. That's when my birthday is. Hugs and kisses. So obviously there was a cozy and friendly relationship between Ghislaine Maxwell and Cheryl Mills. That would have been necessary given Ghislaine Maxwell's additional friendship with Cheryl Mills' boss and, of course, with Bill Clinton as well. Just to additionally drive home the idea that there is no possible way Hillary Clinton doesn't remember meeting Jeffrey Epstein, as we have shown on this program a number of times in the past. Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were instrumental in the founding of the Clinton Global Initiative. Ghislaine Maxwell actually testified under oath that Jeffrey Epstein was one of the original founders and, more importantly, one of the original funders of the Clinton Global Initiative. In order to be a part of something like that, you would have to know the Clintons, and he had already been to the White House 17 times. And, of course, Bill Clinton had already flown on Lolita Express dozens of occasions as well. Not only that, but of course, there is the massive trove of evidence showing the very clear interconnected nature of these people and the lives of the Clintons. There is simply no way you can get around this. Just in case you need it, this is Ghislaine Maxwell's exact testimony. I'm not sure I can. I'm not sure how to I don't know the answer to that strictly because I was part of the beginning process of the Clinton Global Initiative, and that was something that I helped with, and that was me, and Epstein may have helped me help them, and in that context, he may well have been involved. Jeffrey Epstein also was on the record stating that he was a founding member of the Clinton Global Initiative. There really is no other way to put it. And here is yet another exclusive image of Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Chelsea Clinton, along with the King of Morocco at his wedding. And you can see them right here in this picture. Ghislaine Maxwell and Bill Clinton are standing right next to each other. And you would have to imagine that Hillary Clinton must have been somewhere. Maybe she was the one taking the photograph. I don't know. But there was a clear relationship between Ghislaine Maxwell and Hillary Clinton, and certainly between Jeffrey Epstein and Hillary Clinton. Adding to that, this is the creme de la creme, the cream of the crop, rising to the top. This is the cherry on the sundae. The IT guy for Zorro Ranch has said on the record that Bill and Hillary Clinton would vacation at the New Mexico property annually. That means that every year they had a standing appointment to come hang out with Jeffrey Epstein on his New Mexico ranch where he was making designer babies and digging missile silo underground laboratories to do all kinds of insemination of beautiful European women with his supposed superior sperm. Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Bill Clinton was Jeffrey Epstein's closest celebrity mate. That's been said by many people, and those working for Jeffrey Epstein said it. And he and his wife were frequent guests at their New Mexico ranch. They would stay in the pedophile cowboys themed village. The estate workers there, not just one, but multiple. Bill and Hillary Clinton would stay with Jeffrey Epstein at the New Mexico ranch frequently after they left the White House. The former president was Epstein's closest celebrity pal. The Clintons visited Zorro Ranch a whole bunch of times. This is the former contractor who ran the IT system. The family never stayed at the main house. They would go to the cowboy-themed village that was built by Epstein. It lies a mile south of his own villa. The guest homes are next to other traditional Wild West-style buildings, like an old schoolhouse. I bet you they loved that. A saloon. Epstein's private airstrip was right there. That was where all of his planes would fly in. And the man who testified to this was named Jared Kellogg. He was brought in by longstanding ranch manager Bryce Gordon to improve the security and set up a camera system which would allow Jeffrey Epstein to, of course, film every person who came into his place. All right. Now, here is yet another example of someone with knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein and the Clintons' relationship. This is Steve Gill. Steve was a former advisor to the Clinton administration, again, working in Bill Clinton's administration. If anybody is going to know, it's going to be the people around the Clintons and the people working for Epstein.
The fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was at her daughter's wedding, and her story now is, oh, she was a +1. Well, who was she the +1 with as the pimp-in-chief for Jeffrey Epstein? And the alleged 13-year-old girl, her entire testimony was discounted by the FBI after investigation because it supposedly happened again when she was 13 or 15 at Hilton Head Island with no evidence whatsoever to back up her claims, and she was determined to be really kind of off mentally. So again, the left keeps wanting to throw Bill Clinton aside while focusing on Donald Trump. It was Jeffrey Epstein who went to the White House 17 times, with Hillary always out of town. Bill and Hillary went to the Zorro Ranch multiple times, and she never met Jeffrey Epstein there.
Gonzo Rules, thank you so much for the gifted subscriptions. Really appreciate it. You guys make sure you thank Gonzo.
There are pictures of her with Jeffrey Epstein while she claims both in apparently her sworn testimony and...
Now, that was what I was waiting for. Where are those pictures? You have to believe that Hillary Clinton, with all of her connections, CrowdStrike, etc., they've probably been scrubbed from the internet. But believe me, I've been looking for them. I just haven't been able to find them.
Afterwards, she never met the man. So are we supposed to believe our lying eyes or Hillary Clinton?
I guess the difference is she's saying, I don't remember meeting him. Maybe that's one of those.
Yes, this is a very Clinton-esque type of answer. I did not have sexual relations with that woman. It depends on what the meaning of the word is. I can't wait to see what Bill had to say today. Segura, thank you so much. Another $100 rant. My goodness. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate that. Also, I need to say thank you so much to G. Fontes, who says, most every Saturday morning at 10 a.m., there's a pet talk with the pet doc on the Wendy Bell Radio Rumble channel with Dr. Mike and Brock. Answers questions and talk of the newest care and treatment tech. My A+. I'll have to give them a shot. I'll have to give them a listen. Thank you for that. Also, Tricia says, look at the blue dress. Yes, the infamous blue dress, Bill Clinton's blue dress. Denise Ann says, if Ghislaine Maxwell was a +1 at Chelsea's wedding, maybe someone can get the guest list from the wedding so that we can maybe take a look into that. I don't know that it's ever been published before, other than to say that people have just looked at photographs of who was there and then kind of made their own guest list. I don't believe Hillary Clinton only would have said that if the official guest list was not readily available, because if it would have obviously shown that the Clintons had Ghislaine Maxwell as someone who was intentionally invited to the wedding, she would automatically be applicable for perjury charges. So, but certainly something that I hope that somebody can track down. All right. Now, also, the Clintons awarded Ghislaine Maxwell a Clinton Foundation Award in 2013. Now, this is after this is after everyone, the world, had become aware of Ghislaine Maxwell's participation in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, because there was already a number of civil suits that had been filed naming Ghislaine Maxwell. So Hillary Clinton, went off on the fact that, as soon as anybody knew about Jeffrey Epstein, we stopped talking to him. But of course, she never said that about Ghislaine Maxwell, because it's obvious that there was still the presence of Ghislaine Maxwell in their lives. Why in the world would the Clinton Foundation, which of course was like the spawn of the Clinton Global Initiative, give an award to Ghislaine Maxwell? This is right around the time that Ghislaine Maxwell was pushing her Terramar project, the project that really didn't do anything other than put money in her pocket. But take a listen. I'm going to have to refresh.
Yeah, Laura, they knew, everybody in those circles knew that Maxwell and Epstein were attached to the hip. So how the hell did she end up there? And then they're supposed to distance themselves.
No, perjury is definitely the least of what she's done. But we have to prove what she's done. And you have to remember that Hillary and Bill have been essentially DC royalty for like going on 50 years. So the evidence of Hillary Clinton's crimes, they've had ample opportunities for that stuff to be destroyed. Now, you know, my question, of course, is what happened to the evidence that Nate Cain passed over to the what was it, the security committee, the National Security Committee? Of course, Adam Schiff took over the running of that committee. And so once he did, he would have been in a position to destroy whatever evidence Nate Cain had handed over. These people are diabolical, you guys. I mean, like, if it was just as easy as saying Hillary Clinton did A, B, and C, I think that would have happened. Also, Texas Jules, good to see you, Jules. She says, don't forget, don't get to watch live often, but I always appreciate you and Lisa. You guys are the best of the best. I love you, Jules. Thank you so much. Are you going to be in Nashville? Are we going to see you? Yeah, follow the money. Of course, follow the money. And this is, in my opinion, the most likely place that we could probably get Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton on legal issues, because the Clinton Foundation whistleblowers, who I've spoken about many times on this show, they've put together more than ample evidence to show that the Clinton Foundation was completely out of line, illegally working their taxes and stuff like that. So I don't know, Scott Bessent, God, I wish that I could just call Scott Bessent and say, hey, look here, because that is the ticket, in my opinion.
Further, and they gave her an award in 2013 after Bill Clinton's body man and top aide tried to distance and said, hey, staff, Clinton Foundation, don't ever have Maxwell in again. And he reported right to Bill. So who overruled him? I think it's either the last name is probably a Clinton. Yeah, Laura, they knew
they were all too aware of exactly who Ghislaine Maxwell was. And remember, because of their status, because of their power, because of their access, because of what they controlled, they never thought that they would be here right now. For me, personally, the indignity of watching Hillary Clinton be forced to testify about these things, that is satisfying to me. Very, very satisfying. Now, after the photograph of Hillary Clinton was released yesterday, she was pissed. She was so pissed. This is why her and her lawyers halted the testimony. Now, when she spoke after her testimony was done, she spoke about this and she was very, very unhappy. Oh, and I'm going to have to
men, ditch
wait
the blue pill. This stuff
until
works
after this commercial. Give me just 1 second. Oh, God. Okay, here we go.
We had a bit of a challenge in the beginning because we had agreed upon rules based on the fact it was going to be a closed hearing at their demand. And one of the members violated that rule, which was very upsetting because it suggested that they might violate other of our agreements. So we had to cease the hearing for a period of time until we could get assurances that no rules would be broken going forward. And we returned to answer questions repetitively, literally over and over again. I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. Now,
this is very different from the testimony she delivered, Because, again, in her testimony, she said, I never recall having met Jeffrey Epstein. Now, here, she's not under oath, and she changes the verbiage. I never met Jeffrey Epstein. Completely different from what she said under oath.
Never went to his homes. I never went to his...
And here, she directly states that she never went to his homes, but we also know that's a lie.
Offices. So it's on the record numerous times.
Yeah. Nobody is buying it. Nobody is buying it. Now, also, she was upset because she had been asked about Pizzagate. Pizzagate. Now, everybody knows about Pizzagate. Hold on. I think that this is it right here. Here we go.
It then got, at the end, quite unusual because I started being asked about UFOs and a series of questions about Pizzagate, one of the most vile, bogus conspiracy theories that was propagated on the internet, that was serving as the basis of a member's questions to me.
Yeah, not baseless. Definitely lots of base to that. You may remember from Hillary Clinton having employed this woman, Tamara Lozado. She was featured in John Podesta's emails. This is one of those bases within the so-called Pizzagate conspiracy. She ran a website called Evie's Crib, where she seemed to be advertising babies and children. She sent an email to John Podesta saying, we plan to heat the pool, so a swim is a possibility. Bonnie will be the Uber service to transport Ruby, Emerson, and Maeve Lozado. 11, 9, and almost 7. So you'll have further entertainment, and they will be in that pool for sure. You can see here on her website, Evelyn is growing up. Soon she will be the queen of the entire USA. Right now, for a limited time only, you can spend time with her online, live and uncut. Take advantage of this now, as in the future, she will have the power of life and death over you. What the hell does that mean? It sounds pretty creepy to me. Here's a picture of a baby in Washington, D.C. This is one of the people following Tamara Lozado. She had this very odd blog where she's also discussing John Podesta getting entertainment from hanging out with children. Again, this is Pizzagate. Tamara Lozado worked for Hillary Clinton. She was her chief of staff. Don't forget about Laura Silsby, who also worked for Hillary and the Clinton Foundation, who was discovered in Haiti after the earthquake that the Clinton Foundation raised $10 billion for and never spent in Haiti. She was found to be attempting to steal children from Haiti. Most of those kids, their parents didn't even know they were gone. There was nothing wrong with their parents. They were just trying to steal the kids. They got busted trying to take them. And Hillary Clinton had to intervene and get Laura Silsby out of there. Laura Silsby, of course, has changed her name now. She's still out there creeping around, working with kids. Do I think that was the real Hillary? I do think it was the real Hillary. Yes. I don't think Hillary has been assassinated at Gitmo or anything like that. I think that the idea that patriots would take those people and covertly try them and then take clones of them or lookalikes and have them do the exact same things they did prior, it doesn't make any sense. For me, there is no upside to that. I do believe that Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, many other people like that, they have doubles that they will send out. You know, if they don't want to go do an event, they'll just send a double to do it. They have another scheduled appointment, they'll send somebody else to do a photo shoot. But no, I think that was the real Hillary for sure. All right. Before we get into Bill Clinton's testimony, I do have a very brief message from our friends over here on Rumble, and that's going to be 1775 Coffee. Guys, if you haven't yet tried 1775 Coffee, I want to give you the opportunity. They've got some of their starter kits available. In that starter kit, you're going to get their bold dark roast, their smooth medium roast, and their Vitality mushroom coffee that gives you clean energy and laser focus, but not the crash. It's all made from the highest quality beans, single origin, small batch, toxin and mold free, clean as a whistle. Not all coffee companies can say that. A lot of them will over roast their beans to make sure that the mold and the toxins end up burning off in the roasting process, but not 1775. You're also going to get a couple of freebies, including that gold spoon clip, the very strong frother, and a black 1775 tumbler. It's $170 worth of coffee and gear, and it's all yours for $99. This is for everybody who's been watching 1775 blow up and wonder, gosh, should I actually try it? Yes, you actually should. And you can do that by going to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab one of these starter kits before they're gone. It's bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. You can also use that QR code that you see on screen. Thank you very much to Rumble and 1775 Coffee. All right, so James Comer said that during Hillary Clinton's testimony, she repeatedly deferred questions, meaning she refused to answer them. She often would say, "You're going to have to talk to my husband about that. I can't answer that question." And most importantly, she became unhinged at one point, started screaming at the committee for asking her questions. When we asked questions related to Epstein and Maxwell, Hillary Clinton deferred to her husband nearly a dozen times, James Comer said. Today, former President Bill Clinton is going to sit down with the Oversight Committee and answer those questions. Now, as a result of Hillary being unable or unwilling to answer many questions, that, of course, added to the questions that they plan to ask Bill Clinton today. And Nancy Mace is who said that Hillary was screaming and became unhinged. The transcript is likely going to be finalized and released today. I don't know when the videos are going to come out. She said, "You're going to see how she responded, screaming. She was unhinged. I hope President Clinton is less unhinged today than his wife was yesterday." So here, let's go ahead and hear from Nancy Mace on this issue. Okay, here is Nancy Mace discussing Hillary Clinton's unhinged behavior.
It's our understanding that you guys asked Secretary Clinton yesterday about photos of her husband in the Epstein files. What was her reaction when you showed various photos, for example, of her husband in the jacuzzi that we've seen?
I'm going to let Miss Mace answer that. We're on TV.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything. No, she didn't want to answer any questions about any of that and deferred most of those, if not all of those questions, to her husband, and he will be thoroughly asked about that today. You know, what did he know? When did he know? What did he see? Because there are other people who've come forward publicly, like Kevin Spacey, who thought all of this was very strange and actually a very high risk for a president of the United States or former president. It's all very bizarre, but I asked her very pointed questions, and you'll see that in the transcript and the video that comes out, and you'll see how she responded as well, screaming.
Ms. Mace, what do you mean that Hillary Clinton was screaming?
She was unhinged, and I hope that President Clinton is less unhinged today than his wife was yesterday. You'll see it.
So another reason that I really am eager to see the actual testimony and Hillary Clinton's reaction to this stuff is because Hillary Clinton can only keep her mask up for so long before it becomes intolerable. Hillary Clinton, as a pathological narcissist, believes that she is the smartest person in the room, that she is better than everyone who is asking her questions or that she's interacting with. And at a certain point, and I think we're going to see it when she responds in that way, Hillary Clinton takes on the affect of, how dare you even go there with me? Now, allegedly, the part where she was screaming was when they asked her about that event with Howard Lutnick, where Howard Lutnick apparently invited Jeffrey Epstein to come to this very intimate fundraising affair for Hillary Clinton. And that is the point at which Hillary Clinton freaked out. So she completely deflected because obviously if she would have answered, she would have had to have perjured herself because she had already stated that she could not recall having met Jeffrey Epstein. Now, much like Hillary yesterday, Bill Clinton also released his own public statement prior to the testimony that began this morning. Now, what do we know about Bill Clinton? I mean, like I've said, man, he was photographed with victims. He flew on the Lolita Express nearly 30 times. And it's also important to remember Jeffrey Epstein had multiple planes. He didn't purchase the Lolita Express until after President Trump had already kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, had already spoken with authorities about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and it was the Lolita Express that Bill Clinton flew on, not the other planes. Also, he went to the White House at least 17 times while Bill Clinton was president. Bill Clinton has been shown for years in images of Jeffrey Epstein's hired hands putting, massages onto Bill Clinton's body. And during this testimony, Bill Clinton, of course, is going to be answering that he had no idea about the crimes that Jeffrey Epstein was committing. But I don't believe that for a second. I think that just like many other people in Jeffrey Epstein's stable of friends, considering that Bill Clinton was Jeffrey Epstein's biggest, most famous friend, he must have known what was going on. But he can't answer that way, of course. So he said, "Good morning and welcome to Pkwy. I'm here today for two reasons. The first is that I love my country. And America was built upon the idea that no person is above the law, even presidents, especially presidents." He's teeing it up to basically try to throw President Trump under the bus again. Democracy requires every person to play their part, and I hope that by being here today, we can bring ourselves a little further away from the brink and back to being a country where we can disagree with one another civilly, where the search for truth and justice outweighs the partisan urge to score points and create spectacle. I'll do my part, and I hope you'll do yours. The second reason I'm here is that the girls and women whose lives Jeffrey Epstein destroyed deserve not only justice, but healing. They've been waiting too long for both. Though my brief acquaintance with Epstein ended years before his crimes came to light, not true. And though I never witnessed during our limited interactions any indication of what was truly going on, I am here to offer what little I know so that it might prevent anything like this from ever happening again. But before we start, I have to get personal. You made Hillary come in. She had nothing to do with Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing. She has no memory of even meeting him. She neither traveled, and again, he says it exactly the same way because he is going to be delivering this statement under oath. She has no memory of meeting him. She never traveled with him nor visited any of his properties. Now, that right there is a bald-faced lie. I sincerely hope that someone on this committee brings up the accounts of people working for Jeffrey Epstein that say they visited Zorro Ranch on an annual basis. There are times, guys, I swear to God, where I'm like, why can't I get a job just writing these questions for the committees? Why can't I be on the list of people to hand this stuff over? I hope that they ask that question. Let's see. Whether you subpoenaed 10 people or 10,000, including her, was simply not right. We began this hearing with me raising my hand and taking an oath to tell the truth, but everyone has a responsibility to be honest with those they represent. Whether you raised your right hand or not, each and every one of us owes nothing less than the truth and accuracy to the American people. Now let me say what you're going to hear from me. First, I had no idea of the crimes Epstein was committing. No matter how many photos you show me, I have two things that at that end of the day matter more than your interpretation of those 20-year-old photos. I know what I saw and, more importantly, what I didn't see. I know what I did and, more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing and I did nothing wrong. Now this is where he reels them in for the emotional hook. As someone who grew up in a home with domestic abuse, not only would I not have flown on his plane if I had any inkling of what he was doing, I would have turned him in myself and led the call for justice for his crimes, not sweetheart deals. But even with 2020 hindsight, I saw nothing that ever gave me pause. We are only here because he hid it from everyone so well for so long. And by the time it came to light with his 2008 guilty plea, I had long stopped associating with him. You'll often hear me say that I don't recall. That might be unsatisfying, but I'm not going to say something I'm not sure of. This was a long time ago, and I am bound by my oath not to speculate or to guess. This is not merely for my benefit, but because it doesn't help you for me to play detective 24 years later. Since I am under oath, I will not falsely state that I am looking forward to your questions, but I am ready to answer them to the best of my abilities, consistent with the facts as I know them, the legitimate, the logical, and even the outlandish. With that, Mr. Chairman, fire away. Oh, Bill Clinton. All right, so next, as they did yesterday, the committee would come out once an hour, taking breaks, and one of the most consequential answers that Bill Clinton gave is undoubtedly going to drive the people supporting him insane. He testified under oath that he had no knowledge of President Trump ever having done anything illegal in regards to Jeffrey Epstein.
Making a statement here.
And President Clinton said, that's for you to decide. And the president went on to say that the president, Trump, has never said anything to me to make me think he was involved, and he meant with Epstein. So I know there's a lot of curiosity about President Trump. I thought that was an interesting thing that President Clinton said. So I'll let the Democrats have the podium and they can answer your questions. But
I tend to think Bill Clinton made sure to throw that in because, like Hillary Clinton, he's interested in self-preservation. He may not like President Trump, but he's hoping that President Trump's mercy will somehow extend to him once again, as apparently it did several years ago.
We'll come back at the conclusion, the majority will, and we'll answer all your questions. Thank you.
All right. Now, Anna Paulina Luna also came out and gave a little bit of commentary after several hours of questioning under the committee's microscope. And she said, much as all of us already know, Jeffrey Epstein was running an intelligence-gathering honeypot operation. Now, I think that was clear before, but she's saying, based upon the testimony that they've heard from Bill Clinton today, that this entire operation was designed as a blackmail siphon. Jeffrey Epstein would have women that he would traffic to powerful people like Bill Clinton, although Bill Clinton denies it, of course. And he also had women that would act as co-conspirators, other beautiful young women that would disarm the girls that would be brought into this operation and essentially make them feel safe enough to be trafficked, at least until they felt they could tear themselves away. So let's go ahead and hear it directly from Anna Paulina Luna, because she's also calling for the 4 women besides Ghislaine Maxwell that were part of the non-prosecution agreement from Jeffrey Epstein's original case down in Florida to be called in and to testify before the Oversight Committee. And I, of course, fully approve of that. One more ad to get through. Okay.
What I will say is it has become very evident, even in the last 24 hours in lines of questioning, that Jeffrey Epstein was running an intelligence gathering operation. In my professional opinion, I do believe it was a honeypot operation. And I do believe that there's a list of individuals who did engage in trafficking, were given these plea deals, and I'm going to name those individuals right now. The first one would be Leslie Groff.
Leslie Groff was always an adult, so I definitely perceive her exclusively as a co-conspirator.
The second one, Sarah Kellen.
Sarah Kellen, I believe, was also an adult.
The third one, Nadia Markova.
Nadia Marcinko. She, however, did come into Jeffrey Epstein's orbit as a minor. So although she became a co-conspirator, I look upon her with slightly more sympathy.
And the fourth one, Adriana Ross. All of
Adriana Ross, I'm pretty sure she was an adult from the start as well.
these women engaged in the trafficking of minors as adults. They were working and complicit with Jeffrey Epstein's operation. And in my opinion, they are not to be given victim status because they did partake in harming young girls. I remember seeing in some of the files, some of these girls were, as young as 10, 11 years old and older. And so obviously we have a lot of work to do, but I did want to come and give an update and let you know that President Clinton, as of right now, is cooperative and answering all of our questions. And that it leads me to believe that if we can remove the partisan nature of this investigation, we actually might be able to get justice. And so I will be calling on the Oversight Committee to bring in those 4 individuals that I just listed. We will continue to conduct the investigation and provide updates shortly for all of you.
Now, Bill Clinton is one of the most manipulative people in modern DC history. So I can see them asking him questions, him answering, appearing earnest. But that man is a manipulator. Stone cold evil. Just as evil as Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, however, is just not as good at hiding it. So anyways, if you are not already aware, I don't know how anybody here couldn't be. Alexander Acosta was told during the original court proceedings that Epstein belonged to intelligence. And he became the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida in June of 2005. He served under George W. Bush. George W. Bush's father, of course, George H.W. Bush, at one time was the director of the CIA. His vice president, Dick Cheney, was a major government contractor with KBR before coming in and becoming his vice president. Also, I think, direct ties to the Central Intelligence Agency. Jeffrey Epstein began his career working with Adnan Khashoggi, who was a money launderer for the Iran-Contra affair, which, of course, ties directly back to George H.W. Bush. And Jeffrey Epstein, in my opinion, had begun his career and for many years was one of probably many blackmail operators who would give intelligence and compromised information on powerful people to not only the Central Intelligence Agency, but of course to Mossad and whomever was paying for that around the world. And of course, if you're a person who wants to abuse children, you're probably not all that concerned about being compromised as long as you continue to gain access to your drug of choice, as it were. And if you're dirty, if you don't care about doing illegal things, then it's totally cool for you to hang out with somebody like Jeffrey Epstein and, with the full knowledge that you're being recorded, as long as you continue to gain access to those things that are driving you. So we also, of course, know that there was the FBI who reported during Jeffrey Epstein's time before his plea that he was, in fact, working as an FBI informant. So he had been connected not only to the Central Intelligence Agency, but directly to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So there is all kinds of evidence to show that Jeffrey Epstein's connections to the U.S. government were strong and had been ongoing for many years. Kitsko says Bill last year did joke about being put in Colorado Penitentiary versus his desire to be at Gitmo because old people can handle heat better than cold. Yes, I remember him saying that. All right, so this actually is the same clip that I just played, so I don't need to play that again. Also, in regards to the Jeffrey Epstein situation, this right here is the full 7 minutes of the opening argument or opening remarks from the committee before Bill Clinton began testifying this morning.
Specifically, what you need to hear from President Clinton today. What do you want to know?
Well, I think everyone's seen there are a lot of photos that have been released by the Department of Justice as well as the Epstein estate. There are a lot of email correspondence that included President Clinton. We know President Clinton had, and Secretary Clinton confirmed this yesterday, Jeffrey Epstein was in the White House 17 times while Bill Clinton was president. We know that Bill Clinton flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane at least 27 times. So those are questions that we're going to ask. Everything that most media outlets have reported with respect to pictures and correspondence between Epstein, Maxwell, and Bill Clinton, these are all questions that we're going to ask today.
Yesterday, you both told me that you were planning on asking about an email that Howard Lutnick sent to Jeffrey Epstein.
So somebody had asked, wonder if Cheney is in the files. I haven't seen Dick Cheney in the files, but Liz Cheney was definitely in the files. If there is Dick Cheney in the files, it may be just a reference to him, but I haven't seen anything, and I'm looking at... Okay, so there was an email referring to Dick Cheney from Reed Weingarten, but this appears to be in reference to an article written by Peter Dale Scott. So I don't believe that Dick Cheney is in the files in a relevant way.
Zoom about a Hillary Clinton fundraiser. I think that was the one. He's worth asking about. Is he not worth asking in to talk about what he might know?
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting when we hopefully get that video out later today or tomorrow as quick as we can get it out. I think it'll be interesting what Hillary Clinton said about Howard Lutnick.
And how she said it.
And how she said it. We looked, I think that was Miss Mace, with the line of questioning. So there was a pretty thorough line of questioning yesterday between Miss Mace and Miss Clinton with respect to Lutnick. And I think you all find it very interesting what she had to say. But we're going to continue to, ask questions of everyone that shows up in photos on the island and things like that. Yes.
I will be asking for him, yes.
You will.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, we heard from Secretary Clinton after her deposition. She described the session as repetitive. She said it veered off topic. She was asked about things like UFOs, Pizzagate. Can you explain why those topics were brought up, and also in light of the release of that photo?
And she also said there were substantive questions yesterday, too. But one reason there were repetitive questions about Epstein is because we went through every email and every correspondence that implied Hillary Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein communicated often. You all have seen.
It's also worth mentioning that the Epstein operation and Pizzagate as a subject are not disconnected, all right? Some of the same coded language that was included in the Podesta emails was also discovered and highlighted here in this program in these Epstein files. And so Hillary Clinton, of course, wants to keep those siloed in the minds of the American people. But this is one of the things that you come to learn when you research these subjects. It's not a bunch of different crimes that are taking place. It's the same group of corrupt individuals, the same transnational criminal operators who are engaging in the same type of behavior, just with different people.
The email where he said that she looks better in person and all of that. Those were questions we asked. So every item of evidence that would suggest Hillary Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein had a close relationship, we went and asked about that. So it may have seemed repetitive because there was a lot of documentation that would suggest that she had a relationship with Epstein. So go ahead.
To be clear, Secretary Clinton actually asked about the NDAA. Sorry.
Go ahead.
To be clear, Secretary Clinton actually asked us about what happened with the disclosure language in the NDAA. So, I mean, I know she's trying to pivot from the fact that she's here and she had a very close relationship regarding the Clinton Foundation and Epstein and Maxwell. But the point is, and I think I'd like to hit on this with probably Miss Mace here. But I think we have a very important interest and curiosity about what specifically the co-conspirators had a role in all this, right? We know for a fact that some of these were women. And I think that today, at least with my line of questioning, I'm curious about that. Why is it that these women were given plea deals as adults for trafficking minors? How much of that did they witness, et cetera? And so, I don't know that Secretary Clinton was all that honest about the context of this investigation. We asked extensively about intelligence ties, whether or not she felt that she was targeted as a result of possibly an intelligence gathering operation. And she was very curiously interested in that. And then also, you'll hear it in the response, but had told us to follow up with a few countries, one of which is our ally. So that's interesting.
And I think Miss Luna brought up a good point about the Clinton Foundation. There's so many examples in the evidence the Department of Justice released in correspondence where Epstein bragged about how involved he was initially in setting up the Clinton Global Initiative and the Clinton Foundation. We asked those questions to Secretary Clinton yesterday, and she kept saying, well, she was in the Senate at that time. She wasn't focused on it. You'll have to ask my husband. So a lot of the Clinton Global Initiative questions yesterday went unanswered because Ms. Clinton deferred to her husband. So we'll do one more question. Annie, go ahead.
It's our understanding that you guys asked Secretary Clinton yesterday about photos of her husband in the Epstein files. What was her reaction when you showed various photos, for example, of her husband in the jacuzzi that we've seen?
I'm going to let Miss Mace.
Okay, so we heard the rest of this, so we're not going to need to hear it again. Need to say thank you very much to Sheeker13. I think that Tild is acting up on me again. I don't know what the deal is. All right. Okay, so moving on from that, moving on from the subject of Jeffrey Epstein, we do have a little bit more information about the story brought to you yesterday about the FBI tapping the phones of both Kash Patel and Susie Wiles. So initially it was reported that the FBI had recorded that phone call between Susie Wiles and her attorney and that her attorney was aware of it. But now Susie Wiles' attorney is explicitly denying that he ever consented to be on a recorded call at the request of the FBI. Now, Susie Wiles has commented, and she said she believes him. Now, we also, of course, yesterday learned that Kash Patel said the reason they didn't know about these records and the reason that many of these things over the last year that we have only just come to have confirmed is because the records had been in a prohibited FBI file. So that means that those files, although present within the FBI system, are completely invisible to anyone who hasn't been given the special access required to get to them. So Shipwreck Crew here, Bill Shipley, says, if that's true, I think we are well into the territory where it's appropriate to question whether this was not a consensually monitored call, but was instead an illegal wiretap of Wiles or her attorney. And it was hidden behind false FBI paperwork claiming that the attorney had been cooperating with the FBI. So that right there would explain why whomever did it put it behind a prohibited access firewall within the FBI system. So the New York Times also is reporting that this involved the Smith SCO, the special counsel operation that was looking to see if President Trump connected any political action committees had been paying attorneys' fees in order to prevent people within President Trump's orbit from cooperating with Jack Smith in the special counsel's investigation. Either way, the timing is suspicious. The stories do not line up. And Jack Smith was appointed in November of 2022. The call is reported to have taken place in February of 2023. Smith stepped in and took over what was previously an ongoing DOJ investigation. And he might have wondered pretty early on why more people weren't cooperating. So it looks to me more and more likely that this was, in fact, an illegal wiretap, because if it wasn't, then obviously Susie Wiles' attorney would be exposed pretty quickly, and it would mean that there would be something on record to show that the FBI had his permission to listen into their conversation. As I said yesterday, that is a gross violation, and he could lose his license to practice law. And of course, Susie Wiles would have a claim against him. So there will undoubtedly be more information to come out about this to show that we are going to get to the bottom of it. But because of the nature of the classification and the storage of all of these files, of course, it's taking time, unfortunately. Okay, so I need to say thank you to Eric Allen, who says, please take the mRNA off the market, RFK. Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies. Thank you to Moon Baby for a cookie, who says, thank you, Zach. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog says, the Federal Election Commission just dropped a $5 million bomb on Taylor Swift for her sleazy endorsement of Kamala Harris because she was secretly paid millions to pimp that political ad and never declared a single penny. That is pretty interesting. Thank you for that, Filter Dog. Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies. And then another cookie who says the Target was destroyed during the riots. Okay, that was the one that was destroyed. Sean Joe, thank you for another cookie. No thanks, Joe. Says, happy Friday, Zach and Lisa. Thank you for a great week of reporting, and I hope that the 2 of you have a nice weekend together. God bless and stay safe. You as well, my friend. Sean Joe, thank you for another cookie. Filter Dog, thank you for another cookie. Democracy dies in the darkness. RP78. Sean Joe, thank you for a cookie. Sir Lurks a lot, thank you for a phone. And Filter Dog, thank you for the cookie. Appreciate you guys. All right, so next, we also have an update from these newly released FBI documents. We've learned that after the Mar-a-Lago raid on President Trump's home, the FBI's Assistant Director for Counterintelligence, a man by the name of Alan Kohler, you may have heard his name before because it's directly connected to Hillary Clinton. He wrote an email to the FBI agents that were involved in the raid, instructing them to ignore any criticism that may be coming from anyone on the outside, claiming that everything was done, quote, by the book. Very interesting turn of phrase, because that is the same turn of phrase that Susan Rice used after the meeting in the Oval Office with Barack Obama and his whole inside scoop as they were plotting the takedown of President Trump and the ouster of General Flynn. So this, of course, is despite the fact that we have records from the Biden DOJ, which was being run by Lisa Monaco, that show that there was no probable cause in place to search President Trump's home. And several FBI agents in the lead up to the eventual raid had pointed this out and said that they were uncomfortable with what they were being asked to do. So the evidence actually shows that the raid was done anything but by the book. And Alan Kohler, his connection to Hillary Clinton, he's been a long-time operative working for Hillary Clinton. He was known as the head of the Hillary Clinton cleanup crew. From the start of the Russiagate operation against President Trump going back to summer of 2015, Mr. Kohler had worked directly with Christopher Steele and Stefan Halper, the CIA and MI6 operative who was working out of Cambridge, England, and he worked directly with soon-to-be CIA Director Gina Haspel, who at that time was the chief of CIA's London station. There were many different connections to London on Barack Obama's orders. And Svetlana Lakova has provided evidence to the Durham investigation that Alan Kohler directly targeted her first. He contacted her at the University of Cambridge under false pretenses. He said he wanted to do a history PhD at Cambridge. And after that conversation, during the Crossfire Hurricane operation, Kohler's buddy, CIA operative Stefan Halper, who was also an FBI informant, reported Svetlana Lakova to Kohler's assistant, a man by the name of Stephen Sama. Stefan Halper then said that Svetlana Lakova was a Russian spy who had an affair with General Flynn. Kohler's other friend, British spy Christopher Steele, then corroborated this lie, and that was how they went after Svetlana Lakova. So President Trump declassified these documents proving this conspiracy between the CIA, the FBI, and British intelligence, and it was Alan Kohler who organized the raid to confiscate and hide these very documents. This is pretty incredible. Now, I don't know what Alan Kohler is doing today. I would hope that the FBI has long since fired him, but it's quite clear that there was nothing appropriate about the raid on Mar-a-Lago, and many people would like to see some indictments, as would I. All right, next. Yesterday, I played you the clip of Secretary Noem saying that she had spyware installed on her phone and on her laptop, and Anna Paulina Luna heard that. So she wrote a letter to Secretary Noem asking for information about this because they are planning on investigating exactly what happened. Thank you so much to Siesta Randy for that tip through the Rumble wallet, $5 in Bitcoin. You, sir, are a scholar and a gentleman. So she writes to Noem and she says, "Dear Madam Secretary, I write to you regarding your recent public statements confirming that spyware was discovered on your electronic devices, that the spyware was installed by employees within the Department of Homeland Security, and that outside technical assistance was required to identify its presence. These disclosures are profoundly concerning and raise serious questions about internal controls, authorization, and the safeguarding of senior officials' communications. If such activity is occurring at the cabinet level, it raises the question of whether similar surveillance may extend beyond political appointees. Members of Congress and congressional staff regularly communicate with DHS officials on sensitive matters involving national security, immigration enforcement, and oversight. If similar surveillance capabilities have been deployed more broadly, it is imperative that Congress be made aware. Accordingly, I am inquiring whether you are aware of any indication that members of Congress or congressional staff may have been subjected to similar monitoring or device compromise. I am also requesting information on what steps DHS has taken to investigate this matter, including whether the Office of the Inspector General or appropriate law enforcement authorities have been engaged to determine the scope, responsibility, and intent. The confidentiality and integrity of official communications are essential to the separation of powers and the rule of law. I look forward to your prompt response and to working with you to ensure that these serious concerns are fully addressed." I personally can't believe that we only just learned about that. I don't know how long ago Kristi Noem discovered that this was happening. I mean, it's been a minute since Elon Musk and Doge were operating at DHS, as an outside agency. It may have happened recently. I mean, obviously, DHS has their own Doge office now, but it sounded like it happened a while ago. And my question is, what happened to the people who were found to have installed that spyware? Why haven't they been indicted? Why hasn't anything been done to hold them accountable? Maybe it has. Maybe we just haven't heard about it. All right. Also, good news. Yesterday in the Ninth Circuit Court, an order was vacated, an order to vacate an injunction on Executive Order 14251 was handed down by the Ninth Circuit Court, which allows President Trump to cancel collective bargaining agreements when they interfere with national security concerns. So this is now going to cover roughly 800,000 federal employees. And it means that President Trump will be able to clean even more people out of the federal bureaucracy, which, again, in my opinion, is one of the largest hands of the deep state within the federal government. Another cool thing about that, Mike Benz points out that Norm Eisen was one of the lawyers working to keep that injunction in place. And that means that President Trump bitch slapped Norm Eisen as a result of this ruling. So very, very cool. All right, you guys, I have one more message from our friends over here on Rumble, and then we're going to go through these final thank yous. Thank you very much again for being here. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button. Help us out by sharing the show. But I just need everybody here to remember that banks are not your friends. They can cancel your accounts. They can freeze your cards. They can decide what you're allowed to buy, what you're allowed to say, who you're allowed to support, because big banks and financial institutions have got total control over your life, and they use it. That's why financial independence matters now more than ever. So that's why they've created the Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money. No bank, no government, no tech company. You can buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin all in one secure place. There's no permission or middlemen or cancel button. So when you want to support the creators you actually believe in, you can use that Rumble Wallet app to directly tip content creators securely, instantly, and without any interference or middlemen to take a cut. It's not a credit line they can shut off. It's your wallet. It's permanent, yours to protect for the future and for your family. So when the system fails and when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. And it's important to note Rumble Wallet is not about politics. Anybody can use it. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today, download the Rumble Wallet, and step away from the big banks for good, true ownership, true protection, and true financial freedom. You can also use that QR code that you see on screen there, or go to wallet.rumble.com, or just search for the Rumble Wallet in your app store on your phone. Thank you again to Siesta Randy for the Bitcoin donation, bro. I really do appreciate it. All right. I think that we are going to end with... this right here. This will be your moment of Zen. All right. So you may remember not that long ago, there was some anti-ICE graffiti that was sprayed at the Oklahoma Capitol. Well, the perpetrator of that event was just arrested. You can bet probably a Democrat because he's anti-ICE, but he's also a registered child sex offender. He has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for violating the terms of his probation for being a child sex offender, and he's now facing 10 additional charges for the destruction of property and threats of violence. And I'm going to show you this man being arrested.
Why am I being reported? Why am I being arrested?
Is your place still unlocked?
You said what? Your door unlocked?
We don't want to break the door down. You can't do any of that. So, look, we will give you that information as soon as possible. I promise you that, okay? Somebody will give you that information.
He didn't do nothing.
This is, okay, but I assume this is not legal.
Okay. It is legal.
It's actually very legal. Totally legal. You're being arrested by the Oklahoma State Patrol. They're there accompanying ICE and other federal officials.
Then tell me what it is for.
I don't know. I'm just...
And, you know, technically, they don't have to tell you much of anything at all. Yes, it is absolutely wonderful to watch this. His name is Shelby Lang Smith. Shelby Lang Smith is now no longer going to be a concern. Thank you so much to the Kenzie fam who says, Rumble Wallet, hell yeah. Appreciate that $1 in USDT. Really do appreciate it. All right, final thank yous to our friends over here on Rumble. Looks like actually just one more cookie from Filter Dog. You guys are the best. Thank you for the support. I would like to remind everybody about the final sponsors of the program, beginning with my friends over here at rncstore.com/RP78. They offer the best quality source for premium B17 and apricot seeds. They've also got ground apricot seeds. You can put that into food a little bit easier. Apricot oil. You should probably all be aware of the benefits of B17 and Laetrile, amygdalin, it also might be known as. But my good friend John Richardson, his father, John Richardson Sr., pioneered the use of this, and G. Edward Griffin wrote a book about it that you can also find as well. But head on over to rncstore.com/RP78, and you'll save 10% off of all of their apricot seed products. My good friend Jordan over at consciousstrength.net/RP78, or just use the code RP78 when you get there. This is where I get my methylene blue. Methylene blue is a nootropic. It is a neuroprotective substance, and it will help you to regrow neurons. There are so many different studies showing the benefits of taking methylene blue. And of course, everybody should do some research before you start taking something, because this is counterindicated with or contraindicated with MAOI inhibitor-like substances. So definitely, if you're taking other things, you want to look into it before you do. MyPillow.com. Use code RP78 to save up to 80% off on Mike Lindell's amazing American-made products. Of course, you will also be supporting his efforts to win the governor's race in November in the state of Minnesota. And finally, my friends over at onenessdrops.com/redpill78. You can use that code to save 15% off their chlorine dioxide water purification kits. Comes in a number of different forms, but when you add them together through the miracle of chemistry, you can then create a substance, chlorine dioxide, that will allow you to make clean, potable, and safe to drink drinking water. You need water to survive. Think you can survive maybe 72 hours without water. If something happens and you don't have access to clean water, you can always make your own by using these guys right here. And then, of course, they also have mullein extract for lung health, soursop extract for cellular regeneration. They also have DMSO. DMSO is incredible. I use that on the regular. And also, they sell hydrochloric acid, which you may have heard people suggest is incredible for acid indigestion. It is actually true. So you can get that here. You can buy their bundles, which give you a discount, and then you can get my discount on top of it. But definitely check those out. All of them are listed in the description below this video. And that will be it. I'll be on again in 3 hours on Badlands Media for Onlylands. You can join me there, or you will be back here with me at 5 p.m. on Monday for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Until that time, good luck and God bless. We'll see you guys. Have a great weekend. Do make sure you hit that like button or the red pill or whatever it might be before you go.